Welcome back. We're here today with Rocky, who's a 16-year-old 13-1 Welsh section B, believe it or not. He has lots of talents in life. He's a riding pony, he's a driving pony, and he's also probably the world champion licking pony. I'm going to talk today really quickly about the different ways that your horse or pony can show you that he's feeling uncomfortable in his saddle and it's time to get it checked. So sit back, make yourselves a cup of tea and hopefully enjoy. So we all know that having a saddle that doesn't fit your pony very well can make them exhibit some behavioural signs. When we think of saddles not fitting properly, we just sort of automatically think they might buck or they might rear or they might throw you on the floor. But there's loads of other ways that your pony can show you that they find their saddle uncomfortable. One of the first signs that you can see is when you bring your saddle out. When you bring your saddle out to your pony, how does your pony look? Does he go and hide in the corner of the stable, put his bum to you, put his ears flat back, or does he look happy to have his saddle on? When you put the saddle on their back, does he hump his back up? Does he put his ears back? Does he kind of show you signs that make you think that he doesn't want to have his saddle on? If so, then maybe that's a sign that your saddle needs checking, especially if it's something that's just happened recently or it's something that's coincided with a change in shape with him. Now obviously all of these things we're talking about today can be a sign of saddles not fitting or saddles needing checking, but they can also be a sign of other things. But saddle fitting is often a really good place to start. So that's number one. Your horse's reaction when you walk towards him with a saddle. What is it? Happy, sad, angry, aggressive? Let's move your bum back though. No one likes bum holes, remember the bum hole rule. Next up is girthing. What does your horse do when you do his girth up? Look at his face, look at his eyes, look at his nostrils. Does he wrinkle his nostrils? Does he put his ears back? Does he wave his back leg and try and kick you in the head as you do his girth up? Or does he lick you on the bum? The next sign to look out for is when you're mounting. So when you lead your horse to the mounting block, you stand him at the mounting block. What does he do? Does he stand still? Does he stand like rock solid, let you get on and then off you go? Or does he move away from the mounting block? Does he look generally pissed off at the fact you're trying to get on? Does he hump his back up? As soon as your foot touches the stirrup, does he rush off, tucking his bum underneath him? Often mounting is a really good time to see if there's a problem. And you'll notice that your saddle fitter pays great attention to your mounting during saddle fittings, and that is for this reason. When you mount, you put your foot in the stirrup and your weight goes through the saddle. And that's the first point for the pony at which it feels your weight on its back. And the weight is often slightly uneven because you're tending to put your weight through one side, and it tends to be slightly further forward. You tend to mount sort of leaning on the front of the saddle. So sometimes horses, as you're mounting, will throw their head up, and that's a real sign they're being pinched here through the back of their trapezius muscles, around the back of their scapula. If they're being pinched, they'll sometimes react by throwing their head up or rushing forwards. So if when you put your foot in the stirrup of your horse's saddle, your horse reacts in some way, especially if it's a new way, they've not done it before, then again, getting your saddle checked is a really good plan. Now think about what happens when your bum hits the saddle as you mount. Does your horse buck? Does your horse squat, like sit down on the floor, or his legs collapsing underneath him? Does he hump up his little back? Does he look uncomfortable? Do his ears go back? Does he swish his tail? All signs of being uncomfortable. And look for the really small signs too. Sometimes the only symptom that we see as saddle fitters is a wrinkly nostril. Watch your horse's nostril. If it wrinkles up, that's a sign that they're in pain, or if their eyes go a bit glassy and a bit starey. They're all symptoms that your horse is feeling uncomfortable. Now, in terms of ridden work, what can we see under saddle? What do we look out for then? The obvious ones, obviously, if a horse starts bucking or rearing and that's out of character, then that can be a sign. But one of the main signs I see is actually a reluctance to move forward. So sometimes people think, oh, my horse has got really lazy. It doesn't want to move forward. It's starting to get reluctant. It's starting to slow down. It's starting to refuse jumps. So that not moving forward can be a real symptom of a saddle issue. And why is that? That is because saddles that pinch here are pinching the back. A lot of these muscles through here are the trapezius muscles. And what happens is these muscles around the back, the scapula is here, there is shoulder blade, like we have a shoulder blade. They have a shoulder blade here called a scapula, and behind that are a group of muscles that move that scapula. And these muscles move the scapula, and as the scapula moves, the front legs move. So if we restrict that scapula, the front legs can't move quite so much. So if we have a saddle that pinches through the back here, we'll often see, in terms of ridden work, we'll often see the horse much more reluctant to move forwards, much more reluctant to lift their shoulders. Because if you're pinching here, they don't want to move their shoulders in the same way, so they can get a little bit more shuffly, because they don't want this scapula here to do its full range of movement because it's getting pinched by the saddle. Equally, if your saddle balances out, if you're tipping, for example, forwards, and all of your weight is concentrated through here, it can be really tricky for them to move their front legs. That is also seen in upwards transitions. So have you got a horse that suddenly, when you've asked for trot, instead of coming up beautifully into trot and lifting through their sternum like their thoracic sling, which are all these lovely muscles here that Rocky has, if instead of lifting up through there, they're throwing their head up in the air and they like throw their head up to move their front legs, then that's a sign that they're being pinched or restricted, or there's too much weight at the front here, because they can't use their legs in the same way, so they have to use their head as momentum. They use the weight of their head and their neck to propel them forwards and to bring them up into that next pace. Whether it's trot or canter, you sometimes see those upwards transitions, the head throwing up in the air. That can be a sign that you're due a saddle check. It can also be a sign of many other things. Remember that all of these can be signs of other things. But a saddle check is often a good place to start. So, putting your ears back when they see the saddle, hiding in the corner of the stable, swishing their tail as you do their girth up, trying to bite you as you do their girth up, trying to kick you, moving away from the mounting block, humping when your bum hits the saddle, dropping to the floor when your bum hits the saddle, you bucking, rearing, stopping at jumps, reluctance to move forward, throwing their head up on upwards transitions, they can all be a sign that your saddle needs to be checked. But remember, they can all also be a sign that there's something else going on in your horse. A lot of those things are put down to horses' behaviour. Horses are being badly behaved. But if it's a change in your horse's behaviour, let's face it, horses aren't naturally naughty things. We really humanise them by saying that they're naughty, but they're not naughty as such. So some horses have slightly more quirky personalities than others, let's face it. But other horses, if your horse is changing their behaviour, then there's something, he's trying to tell you something. They're trying to say to you there's something wrong. So it's our duty as their owners and as the people that love them the most in the world, it's our duty to listen to them and to do what we can to help them. So for that reason, it is really important that you get your qualified saddle fitter out at least every 6 months to check your horse's saddle, and more regularly if you notice any of those symptoms at all. I hope that was useful to you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and put some comments below if you have any questions at all. In the meantime, take care, stay safe, lots and lots of love from me and Rocky. Like a good boy. Just kiss. Does he lick his salt lick like it? Just people.